Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Richard Listens on Sports. I'm the host of this show, Peter Sobey Jr., if you're Janet Jackson. I have no idea what that means. So, but hey, it gave Jarvis a good laugh, and Jarvis Essex, our amazing engineer that we know and love and does all the sound and visuals and graphics for the show. Our hat's always off to you, Jarvis. And today is a rare day where Dr. Richard and I, neither one is wearing a hat, and neither is our guest. Usually, sometimes it's always an all-hat show or two-hat show, and now it's a no-hat show.
And I actually acquired quite a few hats in the last week. It's the irony.
Right. And that's the voice of Dr. Richard Oberger. Without further ado, getting right into it. So I think it's mostly because Dr. Richard and I both are sporting haircuts, so we kind of felt like, we can't cover these domes up. We got healthy haircuts.
That's right. You're looking especially fine. Thank you. Thank you, Lina.
And yes, and we do have a guest we'll be announcing in just a couple of minutes in studio. It's always fun when we have our guests in studio. So she is sitting there waiting patiently, and we didn't give her a lot of details. The audience can't see you yet, but that was a good wave, Lina. And but she's kind of being thrown into the fire because we kind of walked in and got everything going, and she has no idea what to expect. So it's going to be very exciting for Lina. So now you know her name, but what's she all about? Maybe if you saw some of the promotions, but it's going to be fun. I could tell you that. So, but before we get into it, we are going to have our resident fitness wellness expert, Lina Weiler. She's going to be actually calling in from, I believe, the Washington, D.C. airport or something. She's such a jet setter. She's usually out there in Mexico City doing her modeling and acting and fitness experting and things like that. And I believe that she's on the move, though. She does a lot of auto shows as well, presenting for
I always feel
Pontiac
like she's at a racetrack.
Yeah. So very soon she'll be calling in, and she'll give us a really quick, awesome fitness tip. But while we're waiting for Caitlin to call in, Dr. Richard, you have had many adventures the last week, 2 weeks since we've last seen you. It's been 2 weeks. So where to begin? I mean, Petco, that's a huge thing, right?
This show forces me to have many adventures.
Yes.
It's an industry hazard, but yes.
But you've had Petco. There's a little Dodger Stadium thing happening.
There was a 4-day baseball bonanza in there. Which for most people, they're like, what is so significant about being at baseball games, especially when there's major things going on. But I can assure you there is a connection, and hopefully you caught some of my thoughts from while being out there and the amazing people and experiences that you can meet from America's pastime.
And that is the cool thing, too. Dr. Richard, I say this as if I don't have any inside information, but I've been watching your Facebook, and you've been posting a lot of really great inspirational messages and graphics, but you've also been sharing a lot from these journeys. So without going into too much detail, because people can literally go to facebook.com, Richard Listens, like where you might be watching the show live right now, and scroll down and see some of the photos of Petco Park, some of the videos you made from Petco Park, and they could see some of those adventures. But in a nutshell, you took your son to Petco for 3 days.
I mean, that was the dream. That was the ask for the birthday, was to go see Catch's series in San Diego. One of the great things about going to see a team, unfortunately, that's struggling and not quite going through the historic season that the LA Dodgers are going through, is that you can get seats, you can get close. Some of the players younger that are really just looking for that hunger to connect to both an opportunity to play and to fans. And so it's a very, very different quality of experience. And it was amazing for the eyes of a young child getting a chance to play catch with some of the players and
What?
high five the pitchers before they went in the game. It was a lot.
Wait, like literally high five, like some of the relief pitchers coming into the live game?
Well, when the relievers enter the bullpen, yeah, you can see there, I mean, the chance to like catch a foul ball and then give it to another little girl. Like some experiences that can happen between fans when you can really get this enjoyment of just being around it. And, of course, it's very hard in a parent's day-to-day life or anybody's working to get to a stadium and show up early. Some of the clips are coming up now or 2 hours before the game. And I got to really meet some of the excited employees that have been working for the Padres organization for 15, 20 years. So, there you get to see the opportunity. This is Hector, the backup catcher, who was coming out. You get to see. We met our guest at Ken Revisa's workshop, and I know we've mentioned him weekly. And you talk about the athlete's process, and you can see him out there, the athlete having fun. Just being out there, having a chance to play with kids. He got down, he did his meditations. You could see right there, they're right next to the bullpen, how close you can get.
Wow.
And just that experience for them to go through their process, play with children, interact with fans, sit down, kneel, meditate, close your eyes, and then begin your warm-up. And I knew that night when he hit a home run that his preparation and his process and his centeredness was probably a part of it. That's his own basic training from my little guy out there. He was getting run around.
Here you can see right now he's doing some jumping jacks and
catching foul balls.
Wow. And so did he catch foul balls? I know that was like a big deal.
Multiple. He got signed balls. By the end, he knew, the coach's middle name. And I think the good thing about giving away a ball, if you receive it, for all those who want to fight each other to the death over the foul ball, is that when you give it away, sometimes sitting in the stands is a coach's parent or something who notices that and will try and get you something signed or something like that. So I think a little bit of that karma came back.
Oh, that's amazing. So in other words, he'd already got one, so then he got another one and gave it to another kid.
So, and the good thing about it, if you can make it, if you ever have the pleasure to show up for batting practice, which is usually 2 hours before the game, you can get a little bit different experience both with catching a ball or with meeting a player because there's less people there and it's practice. People are warming up and they kind of want that engagement as opposed to during the game when the pressure's on and they're trying to tune out.
That's amazing. And Dr. Richard, it really makes me want to say that we do talk so much about youth in sports and about parents dealing with their children in sports and coaching their children in sports. And I mean, you are really leading by example here. Like, I love the fact that, okay, maybe not every parent can indulge, a 3-game weekend series, but just the fact that, you took the time to get there early to give that whole experience to your son. Like, there's little small things you could do like that to be with your child and to nurture their dream and to make it happen. And I mean, you are a living example. You're not just preaching it, you're doing it, and this is a great way that parents should be treating their kids. And I know our guest is listening with full ears because, you will be meeting Lina shortly, but she's got a little 7-month-old boy and she'll be experiencing some of these things in a few years herself.
Yeah. I mean, again, it is good fortune that I have this platform and that Peter's, supported me in going on the journey and telling these stories, and even all my audience for indulging me and our guest even for speaking for this long. But, it's a real treat, and you do get to admire the people that are out there and the effort that they make to bring their families. And maybe for some it's not baseball. It could be, who knows, going to NASCAR, whatever it is in your own language. But it is interesting when you show up and get the stories. Getting to enough games gives me a chance to get curious about who are the people that are coming. And, they're the night workers at your local hotel. I mean, we get to really meet the people that this is where their meaning is. In this space of sport is where their identity lies. And these are the same people that are feeling the pain of everything else going on in the country and in the world. So it's very interesting to get into that dialogue in this space. And we're thankful that we have these arenas to go and distract ourselves for a little bit in their just wonderful athleticism and teamwork and camaraderie and just fantastic display of sport.
And we are going to have the Fitness Wellness Minute in just a moment. But on just one final note, I would just like to say that, you mentioned a really important thing, too, there. It doesn't have to be sports. Whatever your kids are into, if it's knitting or cards or, Pokemon, whatever, to just embrace the joy that they have in something and show that you're interested in it. And
to listen and let them follow it. That was the greatest gift, is that my son had been asking me for 2 years to show up and see batting practice, and usually the answer is no, and I'm working, and just no. So to be in that space, I think that was the greatest gift I could give him, was to just say, you know what, if you want to show up 2 hours early, whatever you want to do in this space, if you want to run around, do jumping jacks, and certain teams, are doing a really good job. I hope different leagues are too, of honoring veterans. Petco Park happens a lot of people with dogs in, so making it really family friendly, making it inclusive for people with really small children, so Lina could sit out there on the grass if she wanted to. So making it a safe place for people to come and spend with their families, and I think that's what we're all seeking.
And speaking of safe places, let's bring Caitlin on the air, because she's on a plane. She's probably biting at the bit to get her tip in, because her plane's probably about to take off. So thank you for waiting for us. We have our fitness wellness guru and amazing person, Caitlin Patricia Weiler. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear. No snafus or anything like last time, so this is great. How are you doing, Caitlin?
Good. I am literally about to take off on the runway on my flight.
And
to
here we are,
Detroit
yakking on and on.
Baltimore.
So
I hope that I'm waiting for the announcements to stop, guys, so I apologize. So I thought it would be fitting perfectly to talk about a tip about when you are traveling, because that's when you're usually knocked off your game for health and wellness, right?
Yes. So let's hear it.
All right. Well, obviously prepping is one of the easiest things you can do, like whether you throw in a bag of almonds in your bag for on the plane so you're not eating those pretzels that are probably not the best option for you. And I think many people always forget to drink a lot of water when they're traveling, especially if you're flying. You want to drink water before you're on the plane, not when you're, getting off the plane and you're already dehydrated. Because dehydration, too, can also be disguised as hunger. So it's kind of a recipe for disaster. So today's tip, make sure you drink a lot of water and plan ahead and bring some healthy options for you when you're, going to be on the go.
That's an amazing tip. Once again, it's one of those things that, seem really basic, but people either don't think of it or take the time for it. So amazing tip, Caitlin. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you hanging in there and even calling us from the road while the plane is about to take off, and the waitress or the flight attendants, the waitresses, the airplane waitresses, what do you call them, people? The flight attendants are probably giving you the evil eye, but we appreciate it. And you're on your way to Baltimore, you said?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm sorry for all the noise in the background. So I hope that you got the tip, and can't wait to the next show to give you my next fitness and wellness tip.
Amazing. So we look forward to having you. The next show is actually going to be September 11th, 9/11. So we look forward to hearing from you again then, Caitlin.
Travel
Have a
safe.
safe flight, and thanks for checking in with your fitness wellness tip, Caitlin.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great show. If anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to me through Instagram or on my website. Take care.
Amazing. Bye, Caitlin.
Bye.
All right, Dr. Richard. That was awesome. There she was,
fighting off.
all
Switch
of-
your device to airplane mode.
Right. So it was great. A really great tip, though. Bring a healthy snack. I like to think drinking a lot of water, too, and it kind of goes with talking about the grocery store last time. You'd be surprised what you could do just by drinking water and not being dehydrated.
Same goes for going to a ball game, by the way, if you want to keep costs down. If you can, most ballparks, look ahead, see what you can bring in. You can bring a lot of kiddie snacks and pre-prepared foods. So,
most
bottled water, you can if it's sealed.
Yeah, most ballparks let you bring all that in.
Yeah,
for sure.
so you can save another $50 to $100. So, if you can get in, there's other ways if we can pre-plan to keep costs down.
Amazing. So without further ado, we have a guest in the studio that's been patiently awaiting all of our talking and fitness tips and yip yap and Petco Park and kids and foul balls and pregame batting practice. So we will get into, I hope I pronounce your last name right, because I actually never really say it out loud. But in the studio with us today, we are going to be discussing her journey, which is a fascinating one. She was, since the age of 3, into competitive figure skating, and now into her adulthood, she's transitioning into psychology, which Dr. Richard knows a thing or two about, the resident extraordinary psychologist. But without further ado, we have Lina Chmiel.
Yeah.
You got it.
Great pronunciation.
Okay.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
You see, Peter, you're improving.
Yeah. But it's funny, before introducing you, it's like, wow, I don't think I've ever said your last name out loud, and the thought just entered my head right now. So I'm so glad I got it. Chmiel.
Sounds great.
Well, actually, I think I might have said Chmiel, but it's Chmiel.
Chmiel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I got it
you're
right.
You sure did.
So did you always get a lot of like Chmiel, Shivago, Paxisac Incorporate, Laverne and Shirley?
All the time. All the time. And then can you imagine when they announced my name for any competition? It was a little bit different every single time. So it was
right.
It was really interesting to hear exactly how they were going to pronounce my name this next time.
Well, whenever you have a name with 3 consonants together and like 4 consonants and 2 vowels, there's always a lot of room for lobby there.
I like to throw that in there.
And there's no time to get upset when you're about to go perform your routine, right?
No, it's a laugh off. That's what it is.
So,
Gives you a little chuckle.
So, Dr. Richard, first of all, if you're watching us on Facebook.com, RichardListens, be sure to leave a comment or type in a question, and we'll certainly try to get to it. And I always try to acknowledge people when I see them pass the screen, so maybe we'll say hi when you check in. But Dr. Richard, people are probably really sick of my voice by now, so why don't you tell our audience how we met Lina?
Well, we've talked about our fabulous day with Dr. Ken Revisa. I know you're all jealous right now and want to attend probably the next time he invites everyone to his home or training in a hotel. But even meeting other professionals in the field, I get such an appreciation for how special that truly was, especially since the Cubs have seemed to do nothing but win since that day.
I know.
But yes, we met at a sports psychology consultant training with Dr. Ken Revisa of the Chicago Cubs, a world champion, reigning world champion Chicago Cubs, and learning about how to work with teams and individuals and the whole growing, burgeoning field of sports psychology. And it's amazing to meet people. We had one of our former guests who works with equestrian, a lot of people who work with golf, and to meet Lina, who herself is an athlete, who then wants to go into the world of helping athletes. And it's just like so many light bulbs start to go off, and it's inspirational to know how much knowledge you have within you than to transpose onto others.
Yeah, it's a very full experience that I've had. It's I feel like every day and every other experience that I come in contact with, even meeting with people, and even within that day of our day with Dr. Ken, it was fantastic. I learned something new about myself and how that experience in figure skating really, really turned me into who I am. It's been plentiful.
And
to say the least.
Speaking of that, and I will tell our resident engineer, graphic genius Jarvis, that there's not a lot of photos of Lina to be had on the internet. So maybe once we get into like children figure skating and stuff, you might find like young Olympic athletes to look to and stuff. But we do have a couple of photos of a more teenage Lina figure skating. But so without getting into like a big, huge, long novel, we are totally wildly fascinated. Like when I heard that you were a figure skater since a young age, on this show, we talk so much about youth and sports and the relationship between the parents and the child, like, how much they support them, how much they push them, or how much they don't support them, the relationship between the youth coaches and the youth. So here you are, a living, breathing example. So give us a little taste of your history. You started when you were 3, like, how much was your desire? How much did your parents push you? How much support did you get? Let's hear the story, Lina.
Well, I started when I was 3. My mom took me for fun in Pasadena. I mean, I grew up here in Southern California, and many people would be surprised that I had this huge or long career in figure skating because, in Minnesota or in the Midwest, that's just a part of their school curriculum. They do PE, and it's skating or hockey or, synchronized skating. So, yeah, we found some skating classes. She took me for fun, and I just enjoyed it more and more and wanted to go back. And that turned into private lessons. It turned into local competitions. And before you know it, I'm a teenager and, competing in qualifying competitions every year and making it all the way up to senior ladies, which is the highest level in figure skating, doing triples and flying spins and, intricate choreography with footwork. And so it's been a really, really, really interesting journey.
Now hold the phone there. You just said doing triples. You just kind of, I went to, the senior circuit doing triples, like as if it's like a triple, what? Like triples
Definitely.
are not, up until a certain point in time, people couldn't even do triples.
Right, correct.
And here you are doing triples.
Well, yeah, we talk about there's not too many photos of me on the internet of skating. I think I'm dating myself a little bit because when I was performing and skating and competing, we really weren't, on the internet all that much, and it wasn't as popular. So back then, and because now you see in competitions, people are doing quadruples and they're doing triple axels. And so that the sport is just evolving like no tomorrow. It's amazing, the athleticism that's involved. So I talk about the athleticism, and along comes with injuries, right? And so those also happened, and it's just the name of the game. And you talked about support recently and youth sports, and I think I was lucky enough to have that kind of support from my parents and my coaches and other skaters, actually.
Yeah, so that's because that's a key thing. Like, we don't think of figure skating as like a team sport, or like, does it, you're out there doing a lot of routines by yourself, unless it's tandem.
Right, pair skating.
Yeah, pair skating. Thank you. I'm learning the jargon for, this is part of our journey too.
Of course.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but do you show up to the rink for practice and have the same, girls or the same coach? Did you early on start to feel like you enjoyed, both other kids or going there with mom? I'm assuming she was the one who was taking you.
She was.
Yeah. So was that special in those early years?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, going with my mom would take me early in the morning. Sometimes my dad would take me. We're talking about like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before school. And so, yeah, we have those early morning drives and then drives to school. But you end up growing up with the same like cohort of people and of other skaters from when you were 5 years old all the way up to teenage years. And in my region, the time that I was competing, we were a very, very strong competitive group. Whenever we would go on to sectionals or even nationals, our skaters were at the top ranking. And I felt like whenever I performed the best was when I had a higher camaraderie with my fellow skaters and with the girls that I was training with. We all had our separate coaches, and we all had, our separate trainers, and we would train on our own path and our own journey. But at the same time, we were there together. We were chatting, on the boards, and we were getting yelled at because we were chatting on the boards. So we made it fun. And but I felt whenever I performed my best, and whenever I ended up ranking high or placed, first or second, it was when I was having fun. And I think that calls to and speaks to the support that you surround yourself with.
Yeah, and certainly when you're having fun, you probably want to stick with it more. Did you get to any point when you were like hitting early teens where you were like, do I have to do this, Mom? Or yeah.
Well, yeah. Yes, actually, because some skaters, they're so involved and so dedicated, and I believe you have to be in the sport of figure skating. You have to get there in the rink 6 days a week, for a few hours a day, maybe even more. And you're added the ballet classes, you're added the jazz classes, you're added, all of the other components that make you the full package, including weightlifting and, the circuit training. And so all of that time is there. And so when we are, allotted all of that time, you get to really try to figure out where your place is and exactly if you want to be doing this with all of your time. Some of the other skaters, it's so, dedicated that they do homeschooling. And so they can have all of that time without going to class, without going to regular school. And I was not one of those people. I went to regular high school, and but I was allowed to stay at the rink for homeroom. I wasn't, involved a lot with my school activities, but I made sure I was involved with student government during the day. No other sports after school. It was always back to the rink to skate or to the gym or to ballet class. So it got a little difficult, a little challenging to get up that early every day. But
Sure.
At that point, I feel like the parents and the coaches, they're there to kind of push you and to give you that strength to continue. But also there's those times with injuries where it's just really, really difficult to come back.
What was the earliest injury you had?
I broke my ankle learning one of the, I think, hardest jumps to learn in skating is a double Axel. You take off on your forward edge and on your forward outside edge, and you swing your leg up, and you turn around 2.5 times, and you land backwards.
Wow.
And I came down, and my toe pick got stuck in the ice, but my body kept rotating, and I broke my ankle.
Youch.
So that happened at age 12. And trying to get back into competitive form, it was difficult because with girls, puberty hits around that time, and your body doesn't feel the way it used to. So that is actually where I was introduced to sports psychology.
Oh, really? Did you actually start meeting with a psychologist at that time?
I did.
Wow.
It was.
Were you resistant, or was it a welcome thing to you?
It was a welcome thing. I really, really enjoyed sitting there and talking to somebody else that was not my parents, that were not my coaches, not my other fellow skaters. It was somebody else that was there just to hear what I had to say and to help me understand myself and what I was going through.
Yeah, that must have been such a challenging time at that age, and then when you've always done something so proficiently, all of a sudden to have a period of either inactivity or rehab must have been really confusing.
It was definitely hard. It was definitely hard. I would come back and would see my cohort of skaters. They had improved, and it was really difficult to come back and see and feel like I wasn't adding up. I wasn't measuring up. So it was hard.
But you did get back to competition level, or?
I did. I did get back to competition level. It was, they always, I've heard that when you do get injured, the time that you're off, it takes that much time to try to get back to where you originally were. And I feel like that was pretty true to form, add a few weeks. But I did get back, and I had another injury about 16. When I was 16, I had stress fractured my back, and so that was a little bit harder to come back from. It wasn't as clean as like that 6 to 8 week, being off the ice. It was come back slow. If it starts to hurt, you have to stop, and so that was really, really affecting my confidence. It brought up a lot of anxiety. It brought a lot of apprehension when I was going in for those double Axels and triples.
If I do this, is this going to be the thing that causes me more pain?
And that was an on-ice accident as well?
It was. And that was just a compounding, experience of falling and twisting, and because you're falling hundreds of times a day trying to learn these jumps. So
there you are, you're 16, and now you have even a more complicated injury. So at what point did you come back again, or at what point do you kind of quote-unquote retire from competitive figure skating?
Well, I did.
Which is crazy to talk about. You're 16 years old. Like, am I going to retire?
Yeah. And that usually happens around that age where you're kind of, come face to face with okay, what do I do with my life? You have to really think about that at that young age, and that's really difficult. I did come back, though.
You came back again,
I
a
did.
second time.
A second time.
Nothing keeps Lina down. I love it.
I like to hear that. That's awesome. Yeah, I came back, but I tried to get back to where I was, and I did. But unfortunately, I just was not progressing like I wanted to. And trying and putting so much effort into it, at the age of 20, I decided to stop. I decided to quit. Mm-hmm.
And how much did you discuss it with your parents and coaches? Did you still have a psychologist at that point, or was that a really internal decision? How did that come about?
Unfortunately, I did not still have a psychologist at that point. At that moment when I was going and talking with the psychologist, it was more of, let's do this for just at this period of time. I would have loved to continue. It was kind of like that quick fix idea.
Let's get you back out there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get you well.
Exactly. Let's get you well. Let's get your mind right. Let's get back to competing. And once I felt like I was competing right again, that's when it stopped. But at that time, I feel like my identity and of being a figure skater, it was really, really, really tight. And it was so strong that it was really hard for me to stop or to come to that decision. I think I knew it was time, about maybe 1.5 to 2 years before that. So it took a while.
Now, I don't want to put you on the hot seat, Dr. Richard, but you are a very keen psychologist. 20-year-old Lina walks into Richard's office. Obviously, I know there's no quick fix, but what do you talk about with this 20-year-old athlete that is facing the precipice of, a lifelong passion?
Wow.
I am putting you on the hot seat.
I like how you pumped me up with some compliments first.
Yes.
It's always, wow. Well, I mean, I like that Lina mentioned that she'd been thinking about it for a while. I'd probably like to, so there's a lot of grief there. There's a lot of, probably some things that she wanted to accomplish that was hanging on to. And to make a space for that to be okay, there's probably a lot of fear of who am I if not this? I mean, when it's from 4 years old, that is your entire identity. So I'm probably thinking there's a lot of similarity in figure skating and gymnastics. Mm-hmm. But just as she's gotten to in her own journey, I'd be curious about, what did she notice? What did she learn from these injuries? What did she learn from how would she still like to stay connected to the sport? Are there ways, I mean, it doesn't have to be this kind of like you're cut off and ostracized from the community. And this has been where she's met coaches, friends, mentors. So the fact that it may take some time to get there in your process, but the fact she's gotten in her journey to this place of, I want to help other people, or mm-hmm. even young adults. I mean, those two main issues, I can't, obviously, being a male, but from female to female, to be able to talk to someone at that level of athletic development about body changes, about puberty, about socialization. Mm-hmm. Like our former guest, Chris Stretch, said, knowing that the exact client that you need to have is you, in a way, is so profound, because nobody else has that vantage point. And as great as your parents may have been, or coaches, maybe they couldn't have known what was going on entirely inside of you at that moment. So I want to help people extract that and make it safe for them to discover. And it's never just this really smooth process that happens, like an exit interview. It may take some time, and there's probably mm-hmm. got to be some sadness and frustration. And like Lina said, hopefully I'd be talking to her over the process of time as you weigh the pros and cons. The decision is not always clear. Maybe they're going to give it one more shot. Maybe it's one more competition. Mm-hmm. And they're noticing along the way different things in their preparation, or greater fear, and they're just not willing to do certain things or put themselves at risk in quite the same way. Maybe thoughts about the future become more prevalent, and thoughts about their long-term health. So
one last bank heist. This is the big haul. This is going to be the one.
Right. It could be. It could be. So I want, in the end of the day, it has to be the athlete's decision. It has to be Lina or whoever, the next Lina is, their decision in some level that they're choosing not to do what they've always done. And like Lina's mentioning to us, there is a little voice going, maybe I'd like to do a little something different in the morning, or maybe I'd like to attend a few birthday parties, or there's some other things relationship-wise I'd like to move on with, or career-wise. It's not like they're living just in that bubble of competition. They're still human. They're athletes. They're in the community, and this is a great example of someone wanting to go back to school and continue learning about the whole athletic experience and injuries. There's so much to be learned from that about prevention, about how to take care of yourself and how to recover, and what it does to your brain. So many of our guests talk to us about what it's like when you go through that injury. And, for the average observer, we just see someone, they were in the last Olympics and they were there in the last competition 6 months ago, a year ago. We have no idea what's happening when they're isolated and at home, and we just expect them to reappear in the same form, or when the pitcher can't throw at 100 miles an hour after Tommy John surgery. And, because we're invested as a fan, we're not quite empathetic to what their lived experience is.
You see, audience, this is what I love about Dr. Richard. I'm like, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. He's like, on the hot seat. Like, what am I going to say? And then 10 minutes later, he gives us all this great wisdom and inspiration. I love it.
You fed me. It was you.
It was really
it was your haircut.
It was really a softball toss, but that's great. The funny thing is, what I really, really took away from what you just said is even the fact that you began it with grief. I wasn't thinking about that at all. You think about, we've all had experiences in our lives and stuff, but when you have to leave something like that behind, it's so easy to ignore that you would feel grief over it, or want to say, I don't want to identify with, that feeling or something, but you have to get to the core of it, man, right?
Yeah, I think because the strengths that make an athlete, and especially, Lina, someone working so hard from an early age and having to really, like you said, fall 100 times, that tremendous reserve and resilience can work against you in these moments where it's like, well, right, is this going to cause long-term damage to my spine? Is this going to affect my ability, to be a parent, or how I would be as a parent? So these kind of questions require shifting to kind of a different gear, which may be a real challenge if you're, been always prepared to go out there, give your all, and fearlessly fly through the air in order to land that jump. So it can be hard to tap into those different, they've been kind of tuned off intentionally for competition. So we're tapping into kind of different resources.
And speaking of shifting gears, that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Dr. Richard. I'd first like to say hello to our big listener, watcher, AJ Collier, Seaville friend from childhood. AJ, welcome to the show. He's busy coaching his lacrosse team, I'm sure. And yeah, one day I think we might even have AJ on the show just talking about lacrosse, because, we like to talk about things here about the intersections between life and sports, we like to talk about life, sports, and the intersections between here on the Richard Listens show. But we also like to talk about things that, maybe you're not going to see on ESPN and stuff. And I know figure skating is very popular and stuff, but we are so grateful to have you here, Lina, because these are when else can you get these insights from someone who's been figure skating since she was 3 years old? And so when I mentioned shifting gears, so you finally came to the determination that I'm not going to be a professional ice skater. And, and so now you're at the point where you are a doctoral student to become a psychologist. Give us a little bit about the bridge in between. You mentioned that you've been a stunt skater in some movies, but give us that bridge leading to how you decided to get into psychology.
Well, when you talked about grief, you really hit it on the nose. It was very, very difficult for me to transition out of sport. And I feel that is a huge challenge for athletes who have been in such this kind of dedicated atmosphere and environment for such a long time. And it took me a long time to transition. just where my head was. I remember going through this questioning of who I was. Who was I if I'm not a figure skater anymore? Who was I if I didn't go to the rink? Who was I if I didn't have my skating friends to hang out with? And so, but at that time, I was just really, I didn't know I was grieving, and I blocked it out. I didn't watch skating on TV. I didn't go to the rink. My mom said, well, why don't you, teach a little bit? Why don't you go back to the rink and, teach some group classes, teach some private lessons? And I said, no, I don't want to be there. It was really, really hard for me. And so after probably about 5 to 7 years, I decided to go back and start teaching. An older coach of mine invited me to come do choreography for his students. And so I've been teaching and coaching ever since. I still coach, and I'm coaching private lessons and synchronized skating teams, and I'm having such a wonderful, wonderful time with it, and just really helping my students find the joy in who they are as a figure skater, but also who they are as them, and that's the kind of journey I've been on and getting into psychology. I decided to go into clinical psychology and not just sports psychology, because I wanted to eventually and ultimately help athletes really understand who they are as a whole person, not just as the athlete. Because with the athletic identity, it could be you have to have that in order to succeed and perform well, and to really have that the gusto out on the field, out on the rink. But also it could be a hindrance to who you are as an individual, because it doesn't last forever, unfortunately. But with athletic identity, you can carry it through your whole life. You can be, that scholar in school, that valedictorian, but that happened in school. So.
It's amazing, Dr. Richard. We sit here listening and watching Lina speak. First of all, your future clients and patients are going to love you. The very soothing voice, but she speaks like someone that's been doing it for a long time. It's really amazing, the insights that you bring to it. And one thing that I think is fascinating that I'd like to do that I haven't told either of you about yet, but at the point where you are at, we've got a very experienced psychologist here, Dr. Richard, and to my right we have a doctoral student who's going to become a clinical psychologist. And I think it'll also be interesting for our audience to hear a little bit about what it takes to become a psychologist. It's a long road, I don't even know a lot about it, but just tell us where you're at in the process, and then Dr. Richard finish where she's going from here.
That would be great. So I have my master's degree. I entered the doctoral program about 3 years ago. So at this point, I finished all of my my curriculum, my classes, and now I'm applying for internship at the moment. And so I will be graduating in 2 years. And then a year after that, sitting for my licensing exam, and hopefully to be licensed within 3 years.
And then what does that take? You made it sound pretty easy. I know it's not easy, but isn't there also 3,000 hours in there somewhere or something? So what's her road now, Dr. Richard?
They've changed the regulations a little bit, but I think depending on the school, they carve out for you to get 1,500 of those hours. I think at least 1,500 have to be done after you graduate. So you can get up to 1,500 before, depending on the experience you want to find. Sometimes people wind up with more because they want to get a lot of different types of experiences, but sometimes people who are really targeted with where they want to work get a jump start on those hours. And it's really hard to predict, because sometimes you wind up, or something in life, in my case, I was getting hours at a drug addiction center, and then there was a family illness, and I had to stop. So you think you're going to be on this path, but it wound up opening me up to a whole nother realm. So the whole plan and who you meet and who inspires you. I just came from a fantastic conversation right now where, someone who's trained in trauma work, and I said, gee, maybe you can come work with me. So the beauty of eventually becoming licensed and going through these steps is that, again, you get to connect to students, you get to mentor others. And there's an exciting part of that process of staying really fresh with new knowledge, with that passion. Because the challenge for any of us as we get going in this field is that I become more of an administrator. I become more of a liaison to an insurance company. I become, a report writer. And so being a supervisor is, or being connected to people who are in the licensure process keeps me fresh. And so, that is part of the mentoring process, and hopefully what Lina's going through, it's both learning about, and not everyone has this reservoir that Lina already carries with her of such a rich lived experience and a direction for where they want to go. A lot of people study psychology and get out of the degree and they haven't lived. So, and other people have lived and go back for degrees, later in life. And so there's no cookie cutter process, unfortunately. Right. But it sounds like she has a really clear plan, and it can be done. The goal is to give you a couple different places to get experience, I think, while training for the exam. And the exam, remains questionable how much that measures how much you know versus, certain kind of benchmarks that they set out for you. So, but we can talk about all that.
What does she have in store for her, though? Like, I've always really been curious about this because my respect for psychologists with the doctor in front of their name is through the roof, because it is such a long journey. And, so you've got to get 1,500 hours after your schooling. Does that just mean you eat ramen noodles? Like, how do you survive to get to the point where you can finally fly free and hang your shingle?
Well, thankfully, if you're someone like Lina who can continue teaching or doing something, a lot of people, once you have a master's degree, can teach, or you can get paid as an assistant, as an intern. You can charge clients and begin seeing clients. So clinics or private practices will do that. So that's a great way that I learned to pick up clients. I have certain clients that have stayed with me to today that I had from 14 years ago as an intern. That doesn't mean they didn't stop or take breaks, but so I think it's great that who I was without or just with my beginning knowledge, on some levels there's still a connection there. The relationship is what builds. So it's really the opportunity, like Lina's saying, I just need to be in front of people and to have this knowledge within both myself, what I want to do with them, and I want to be able to help them in some way. And we just start out with that innocence and the purity. The degree, means that we have a certain amount of training and a certain amount of knowledge. So yes, it does mean that someone's attended 4 years post undergraduate, plus completed a dissertation if they're a PhD or a doc project, I think they call it if you're a PsyD. So there is research involved, there is time, there's commitment, there's learning about trends in the field. And then there's 3,000 hours of being supervised and being kind of guided. So that does mean that there's a level of professionalism attained, which I think is, what sets psychologists apart.
And, hey, Jarvis, I can't really see the clock. We're only like a couple minutes left, right? 7 minutes. Oh, okay, great. I thought we were a lot further along, but that's good because I do want to get a little bit more with you, Lina. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Richard, for sharing that because we kind of take it for granted. We have like this amazing psychologist right here on Richard Listens, but we never really get to hear about, the inner workings of it and stuff like that. And especially like at the place you're at now, trying to find that line of staying fresh between just being a guy that's the liaison with the insurance and a supervisor, like keeping it fresh and finding new patients, getting into, you've transitioned from the clinical side and being on Skid Row to working with athletes and different people like that. You got to keep it fresh, right?
Yeah, for me, the honing process continues. It doesn't end after licensure. Figuring out who you are, is what's going to keep you balanced, what's going to keep you in the stress regulation zone, not getting too affected by, and that can happen initially as an intern, or it can happen, if you were in stressful situations early in life, like athletes are, like Lina is saying, not many people get that. But having that experience teaches you your system. Okay, Skid Row was too overwhelming for me. I didn't have the skills or feel like I could make the difference that some people could. So I'm trying to find the way, both through the populations that I treat and the people that I treat, where I can make the greatest difference and feel the greatest reward. So I think there's this constant kind of tweaking and sharpening the saw that goes on. And it's I'm constantly a student. I'm constantly seeking out mentors, or you meet people that, like Dr. Ken, that share things that you're like, wow, I want to be a little bit more like him. Or if I could have that courage just to get in front of world champions and just be myself. That's really what I learned. As much as he had professional resources and materials and a doctor of education, he was thoroughly the same way he was in front of his friends and his wife, he was in front of us. And that's a beauty of authenticity. So I think the great thing about being exposed to great leaders and mentors is that you go, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe I either need to trust myself more, or I need to borrow a little off that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I love this field, is because as you evolve, then your work will evolve, and the people that you come in contact with, they're going to be so different, and you're just going to look at your field in a whole new lens, and I find that so exciting.
So Lina, we like to inspire and motivate our audience here, with tips, and you're a very inspiring individual. Like, it's not easy to do what you did as a child and then a teenage athlete, and then to go on to pursue your dream of becoming a psychologist, and in between you started a family. So talk to, not only the females out there, talk to the people out there. What is it inside you? Like, we talk also here a lot about that driving force inside people. We all wish that maybe when we're younger, someone might have shared nuggets of knowledge with us that we learned later. Share with us some of those, talk to the young girl out there who wants to do something that people maybe say, like, you can't do. Like, how do you drive yourself and motivate yourself?
Well, I feel that doubt and fear, that's going to be there. So that's okay. And to feel that it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to doubt yourself sometimes, because you're not sure what's on the other end. You're not sure what's going to turn into, and that is very anxiety provoking. But it's there. But then there's also other people there that have done it. They've been over that hurdle. They've gone through that journey, and to seek out the mentors. My dad would always say, if you seek out a mentor, they want to help you. They are chomping at the bit to help you. Like you were talking about, Dr. Richard, how you learn more about yourself when you are in that supervisor role or the mentor role, and you're being taught by the students. And so, but also to get connected and to get that support. And to try to talk to as many other people as you can about where you want to go. Because to still have that fire within you, it's going to be there, and listen to yourself. That gut feeling that you have inside, it is there, and sometimes it may dim, but it's there. So try to magnify it.
That's amazing. And we just have a couple minutes left on the show. And if you do want to reach out to Lina in the future, we've had your email up on the screen under your name. So definitely feel free to reach out. You can always, this video will be up on facebook.com/RichardListens for, perpetuity. So you can always leave comments here. Yes. Yeah. Jarvis is giving me a good pointer. We're going to have you actually give your email through your vocal cords, through your voice, as we human beings talk, and sometimes I talk with not lots of sense. How do people reach you, Lina?
They can reach me at linachmiel23 at Gmail, and that is LINACHMIEL 23 at gmail.com.
Oh, Lina. I kept thinking you were like Lima Bean. Like, no, I'm just kidding. What an awful joke. Oh, my God.
Let Lina keep talking.
I just took a turn off the cliff there, So And, you can always leave comments or whatever. Reach out to us. We can connect you with Lina.
Yes.
It's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and inspiration. And there's just no doubt that you're going to make an amazing psychologist. You already feel like wise beyond your years in psychology.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to it. And I appreciate you having me today. And it's been so great. Thank you.
Wow, awesome. And so
you're totally welcome. And I think the fact that, I know we have to wrap up, but this is beautiful sharing that the idea of having a dream and having a passion, having a goal, but also for being okay when you're younger and older. You have doubts and fears. That's what makes you human, and it's okay. You don't have to just try and cut them off. Let people guide you. That's the beauty of all that, because even in a sport where you're working individually, we still have others to help us.
Totally. And if I could just throw in my 2 cents on inspiration and motivation, to me, like I've always said, never be happy just surviving through life. Like, you want to thrive. You don't want to just survive. Like, make it your goal to thrive and figure out what that means to you and what thriving is, and don't settle for surviving, but thrive. So that's my motivational 2 cents and why I'm sitting here today.
Thank you.
So I
And
thank
you helped me
everyone.
thrive, Peter. Thank you.
There you go. And Richard and I are going to figure out a good thing to inject some more fun into things, as we have a great lineup coming up ahead. And when I say that, it's because we are generally every other Monday night, but we are not going to be here on Labor Day, September 4th. But you will see us on September 11th and Monday, September 18th for 2 in a row. And on September 11th and 18th, and we're going to have Dr. Christina the real deal, back on September 11th, 9/11. And it's going to be a really interesting episode because
So that's what motivated her start.
Yeah, 9/11 motivated her start, and we'll be having the show on the anniversary of 9/11. And then on the 18th, it's not confirmed yet, but we're hoping another Dr. Ken Ravizza, a incredible person that we met, Dr. Neil Smith, who deals with tennis players. And then very, very excited, in October, we are going to have Chris Stretchback, another Dr. Ken person, but we're going to be...
It's the universe of Dr. Ken. We should change our show name.
Right, but we're going to be tying it into teaching youth coaches to teach and tying it in with a seminar. So as we build this seminar and the excitement, we'll be sharing that with you, and it's really exciting. So remember to keep up to date with Dr. Richard on his Facebook, facebook.com/RichardListens or RichardListens.com. And he's always putting up, really motivational videos and graphics and keeping you up to date with what he's doing. So
And Instagram, Richard Listens.
And Instagram, yes, at Richard Listens. And I'm at Instagram at Donut Spirit.
I love that.
Not as great as Richard Listens, but hey, Donut Spirit. So we got it up on the board. Another thanks to Jarvis, our amazing engineer. And we look forward to seeing you in actually 3 weeks here on Richard Listens on Sports. We'll see you later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.